As candidates ramp up their efforts, they'll pay special attention to who supports their campaign. Among the desires for candidates, political endorsements. Professor Kate Kensky at the U of A Department of Communication and School of Government and Public Policy studies the role endorsements play in a campaign. We begin with what constitutes an endorsement.
An endorsement really is anyone who volunteers or offers their support behind a particular candidate. It typically comes in one of three kinds. It's either the political endorsement, which is usually someone who's had political standing or a group that has been known to take certain ideological points of view. It could be a celebrity endorsement, which is someone who is very popular. That is typically in the entertainment industry, but it could be a celebrity of any sort. And then the citizen endorsement. And so those are all different types of sources that can offer their support toward a candidate.
This election cycle, we have seen tweets, we have seen speeches. We've also seen pictures mailed in flyers that were not taken necessarily during the cycle, but previously. Does that also count, or is that a candidate trying to remind voters, hey, I was connected with that person at one point?
When we think about the official endorsement, usually it's the person or the organization that has made some kind of official statement. If they are really huge, they might do it in fact in some kind of press release or that kind of format. I would say that if you're seeing kind words from a candidate or about a candidate from a politician that's from the past, depending on who's sponsoring the flyer, it could either be the actual person giving the endorsement or just kind words from the past.
Have you found that endorsements really sway voters?
They can. Essentially, they offer a cognitive shortcut for voters. So voters who are trying to decide between many different candidates in many different races, oftentimes, particularly in primaries, need some kind of shortcut to make a determination about who they should cast their vote for. And so in that sense, endorsements very much can matter, because rather than having to sort out fairly nuanced perspectives, the voter can look at someone they trust or maybe don't trust and make a judgment either for or against how the endorsement has swung.
Why do we see some major names and faces staying out of the endorsements?
Some people and organizations take the position that they shouldn't offer their support for or against candidates within their party, and they should basically let the party decide on its own. And so that could be a point of view of them just wanting to stay out. I wouldn't read necessarily too much into it about they don't like any of the candidates in their party. That might not be it at all. It might be just genuinely that they want to let the party emerge with who they think the best person for the position is.
A political endorsement can skyrocket a candidate, but it can also backfire. Is that fair?
Endorsements can backfire. And that's why I think you'll see going into the 2018 that when, for example, the president gives his seal of approval, just as that can be used to support a candidate, it can be used by the other side to signal that maybe you shouldn't vote for a particular candidate if the president is backing him. And that's always been the case, that candidates have to be careful about their friends sometimes. Sometimes the most extreme people on the political spectrum may want to offer their support, but sometimes that serves as a cue that they're too far left or too far right. And so that's something to think about. The other thing that I would just add on endorsements is how they're delivered matters. In an information environment in which things spread through social media, one has to be careful about where endorsements are placed, and one has to be aware that you might not be able to control, for example, if someone offers their support on Twitter, what other people do with those tweets, how they make memes out of those tweets. And so the delivery of the endorsement or form of support matters greatly.
Can an endorsement be rescinded?
It can, but in that case, the person rescinding it has to, hope in a sense that the media picks up on them taking away the endorsement.
Okay, Kate, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.